Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Sarah Webster and I'll be facilitating the webinar today on financial literacy. I also have my colleague and fellow knowledge broker Melissa McKay on the phone with us, who is logged in as the chairperson in the room today and will be helping keep an eye on the chat pod and all the questions happening there. So we're really happy at Niagara Connects to host this webinar as part of our bi-monthly series. This webinar actually came out of work with the Rowing the Boat Together project. Rowing the Boat Together sessions are being held right now for frontline community service workers in Niagara with a focus on interagency collaboration for person-centered service delivery. One priority emerging from those sessions was a desire to pull together financial literacy informational tools to enable community service workers to better assist their clients in gaining basic money management skills. And we certainly saw from those who registered for the event today that there is a lot of desire in our community for that type of information. So we're really excited about both of our presenters and what we're going to hear today. For those of you who are new to this type of platform or this type of presentation, you'll hear our voices obviously through the phone line here, but the slides themselves are shown through our online meeting room. So please do make sure that you've also clicked on the link to join the online space. You'll see the slides in the middle of your screen, and then down the left-hand side is a chat pod. We do have all of the participant lines on mute while the presenters are speaking, just to help us cut down on some of the background noise. But if you have any questions, tech questions, or information questions for the presenters that you'd like to ask, please use that chat pod at any time to type them in, and we'll keep an eye on that. We'll have two opportunities for discussion, one after each presenter, where we'll read back the questions and ask our presenters to respond to them at that time. The presentation itself is also being recorded, and we'll be posting that recording on our Niagara Connects online platform, the Niagara Knowledge Exchange, and we will send a link to that recording as well as to other related resources within about a week to everyone who registered for this event. So you will see that come through, and we do encourage you to forward it on to other colleagues who maybe can't be with us here today. I think that's all in terms of the technical stuff. I'd like to introduce both of our presenters. We'll first be hearing from Kathleen Batstone, Communications Coordinator with the Credit Counselling of Regional Niagara. And then afterwards we'll hear from Carol Stewart-Kirkby, Executive Director at the United Way of Niagara Falls and Greater Fort Erie. So I'm going to put myself back on mute, and Kathleen, I'll turn it over to you.
Okie doke.
Great.
Okay, my name is Kathleen Batstone. I'm the Education Coordinator at Credit Counselling of Regional Niagara. If there's anybody out there who isn't familiar with Credit Counselling of Regional Niagara, we're a charitable not-for-profit United Way agency, and most of what we do is we have programs that help people manage and pay back debt. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction to financial literacy. Now this is obviously a huge topic that we are absolutely not going to be able to cover in the allotted time. But I tried to pick out some highlights, and this is how we're going to sort of proceed. First we'll talk a little bit about what is financial literacy. And then I'm going to pick out a couple of issues, financial literacy issues that tend to come up pretty often, and then provide you with some resources to help if you have clients who have issues related to financial literacy. As I said, this is a really big topic, and so we're also going to have a little poll at the end to ask if you'd be interested in hearing more about particular financial literacy topics or receiving more information about that. So you will have that opportunity at the end as well. I'm going to apologize right now because I'm going to have to talk really quickly to try and get all of this in. Just about everything that I'm going to say is going to be in the slides. So hopefully if I'm talking too fast, you can follow on the slides. And then of course the goal of getting through this fairly quickly is so that you'll have lots of time to ask questions. So if there's anything that's unclear, by all means please let me know and we can address that during the question section. Okay, so what is financial literacy? This definition comes from the Canadian Task Force on Financial Literacy. And basically financial literacy is having the knowledge, skills, and confidence to make responsible financial decisions. So what that means is, first of all, you need knowledge, an understanding of personal and broader financial matters. Then you need the skills to be able to apply that knowledge in everyday life. Also, you need the confidence to use that information to make important decisions. And finally, they define responsible financial decisions as the ability of individuals to use the knowledge, skills, and confidence they have gained to make choices appropriate to their own circumstances. I'm sure the fact that you're here points to the fact that you already understand the importance of being financially literate. But here are a couple of just the ways that being financially literate can help people. It helps people decide how to spend their money and meet financial obligations, helps them manage their personal finances and plan ahead for life events such as home ownership or retirement. This one is probably one that you encounter with your clients fairly often. They need to be able to ask and understand how they can benefit from local, provincial, and national government programs and systems. It also helps people assess the financial information and advice they receive from relatives and friends, professionals, or the media. And then this last one is probably quite important for your clients as well, which is it lets people maximize the use of the resources they have access to, including workplace benefits, private and public pensions, tax credits, public benefits, investments, home equity, and access to credit. So this is actually financial literacy. It's been in the news quite a bit lately, but it's actually a fairly recent topic. So there isn't a ton of research out there, but I tried to pull together a few sort of stats to give you some ideas about the level of financial literacy. By best estimates, about 40% of the Canadian adult population lacks the basic and essential skills needed to function in today's economy and society. Just a couple of points related specifically to financial literacy. In a Statistics Canada survey in 2009, they found that among Canadians, only about 51% had a budget, and about 31% were struggling to meet their bills and payments. This is also we see financial literacy levels vary depending on various groups. So this survey by the Fédération des ACEF du Québec identified seniors and consumers with low incomes as groups with below average financial knowledge. So if you're working with seniors, if you're working with people with low incomes, you'll probably see that is more of an issue. In the survey, when participants were asked to respond to a list of 17 questions about financial matters, the average number of correct responses was 7.2 overall, but it was only about 5.2 for seniors and 5.5 for people with households of annual incomes less than $20,000. So those two particular groups were flagged. Just another way of looking at that, they asked people if they had received any financial advice in the last year. And that doesn't mean necessarily having a financial advisor or anything like that. It can be something as simple as, did you go to the bank and ask for information? Or even, did you talk to family and friends about looking for financial advice? And what they found is that 90% of people in the lowest net worth group had received no financial advice in the last year. Also, young people come out as falling into this category as well. 73% of people aged 18 to 29 had received no financial advice, and 62% of people in the lowest income group also had received no financial advice in the last year. So we know financial literacy is important. We know there are certain groups that seem to have lower levels of financial literacy than others. And sort of to pile on with that, what they have found is that a lot of the information that's out there and the materials that are out there might not be the best for people who fall into that low-income group. And I'll just give you an example of this from the work that I do. The bulk of my work involves doing workshops. And one of the pieces of advice that you'll often hear about financial matters is that everybody should check their credit record and take a look at it and find out what's on there. If you're someone in a low-income group who is not in any position to be paying back debt, you owe money, but your budget is so tight you're not in a position to be paying it back, sometimes if you've moved and your creditors have sort of lost track of where you are, and so you're not getting harassing calls anymore, if you actually check your credit record, you have to use your current address to do that, and now anyone that you owe money to, they will have access to that credit record as well. Now they know where you are. Now they can find you and start harassing you for money again. So you can see how that piece of advice, while generally applicable for people with middle or higher incomes, is perhaps not always the best piece of advice for people with low incomes. So just an example. Okay. So a couple of topics came up when we were talking about doing this webinar. There were a couple of topics that were identified that people had concerns about. So I'm just going to touch on, I only have time to touch on a few of them here. But the first one is people without bank accounts. I think this came up originally because of the concern that Revenue Canada is going to be moving to direct deposit. I think that's April of 2016 that they're going to be completing that by. Basically, around 2% of Canadians in low-income groups don't have a bank account, compared to only about 0.5% of adults in general. Reasons why that is a problem: people without bank accounts, they spend more than they need to cash their checks. If they're going to Money Mart or something like that, usually they're paying about 3% of their check to cash a check. Also, people without bank accounts are at greater risk if they're carrying a lot of cash, of being robbed or of losing that money. And then, of course, there's the issue about Revenue Canada as well. The second issue is payday loans. If you work at all with people in low-income groups, no doubt you have heard terrible stories about payday loans. Payday loans are basically, this is like if you go for a loan at Money Mart or the cash store or these various places. Payday loans are the most expensive way you can possibly borrow money. I even did a little bit of non-hands-on research into loan sharks. And although there is I've heard some conflicting information about that. It can be cheaper to get money from a loan shark than it is from a payday loan company. Basically, the government has laws about how much interest you're allowed to charge on a loan. And the way that these companies get around that is that they don't charge interest, they call it fees instead. But if you took a look at the fees that they charge and figured it out as if it was an annual interest rate, they can charge the equivalent of over 500% interest on a loan. So people who are getting these loans, they're extremely expensive. The next problem with payday loans is often if people are on a tight budget, when their check arrives, if they have to pay back this loan, now, of course, they're short whatever that amount of the loan was for their next check. So they often get stuck in a cycle where they're borrowing again and again and again. And then finally, I've heard so many terrible stories about people who started off borrowing $200 and they end up owing $800 or $1,000 because they haven't been able to pay the loan back on time. If you get a payday loan, you have to give them a check from your checking account. And so when your loan comes due, if you don't have the money to pay it, they can take that check and try and take money out of your account. If you have money in your account, now you've lost that money that you were probably using for rent or food or something like that. Or if you have no money in your account, they will take the check and keep trying to take it out. And so every time they do that, of course, you're getting hit with NSF charges. So people's debt can spiral out of control really quickly based on that. Okay, and then the third one is collection agencies. I included this information because we see a lot of clients at Credit Counseling who finally, it's the harassment from collection agencies that finally pushes them to come see us. And a lot of people don't know what their rights are with regards to collection agencies. So I just thought I'd include this little write-up of your basic rights with regards to collection agencies, just as a little piece of information. Basically, collection agencies, unfortunately, they do a lot of things that are against the law. But these are some of the rules that they have to follow. First of all, they have to send you a written notice through the mail to start things off. Also, they're not allowed to contact someone more than 3 times in a week, except with their consent. And that means talking with you, emailing you, or leaving a voicemail message counts as contact. Also, they're not allowed to contact you on a Sunday, except between 1 and 5 p.m. They're not allowed to contact you between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. They're not allowed to use threatening, profane, intimidating, or coercive language, or use undue, excessive, or unreasonable pressure. If you have clients who are finding that the collection agencies are doing these things to them, often just letting them know that you know what the rules are will stop them from doing that, or they can also file a complaint with Consumer Protection Ontario, and the link to that will come up in the resources section at the end. Okay, so we talked about why financial literacy is important, talked about some of the people who tend to need a little more help learning in that area, and then we talked about a few of the issues. Now, here are some resources that will help people who need help with financial literacy. Unfortunately, there's lots of information out there for people who are middle income and high income, but it can be a little more challenging to find things that are appropriate for people on low incomes. One of the organizations I'm going to talk about, the Federal Consumer Agency of Canada, they just recently released the results of a study, and what they found is that what works best, especially for people who are on low income, are seminars, workshops, and one-on-one methods of delivering financial advice. Sometimes it's not enough to just give somebody some written information. Having that sort of interaction can be very useful too. And so with that in mind, the first resource I'm going to promote is us. At Credit Counseling of Regional Niagara, we offer no-charge workshops for groups. Often it'll be clients of social service organizations. And we offer workshops on all kinds of different financial topics: budgeting, living on a reduced income, credit and debt, that kind of thing. Just about anything financially related that you're interested in having a workshop on, we can do. We'll come into your organization, so you don't have to travel. We'll come in there, we'll deliver a workshop, and they've been very well received. So that's an important resource to know about. Something else that we're including, that's going to be included with the resources in this presentation, is we have developed a couple of curricula for clients who tend to be underserved as far as financial information and resources goes. So we developed one for newcomers. This was developed in conjunction with the Folk Arts, and I've delivered it actually annually for the last 4 or 5 years. And then we've also recently developed one for people with low literacy. And this program it's also coded for essential skills. That one hasn't been piloted yet, but the materials exist. The nice thing about these is they're designed for you to use for example, if you have an ongoing program and you want to include some units about financial literacy. That's what it's designed for. So it's the kind of thing that you could use in your own programs. Okay, so that's for group education. The other thing that we do at Credit Counseling is offer confidential credit counseling for individuals. So if you have clients who are having trouble with debt, it's free to come in and talk to a counselor, and they can give clients advice about budgeting, about their debt situation, and about options for helping to pay back debt. It's free to come in to talk to a counselor, and you may see, if you've seen other credit sort of credit organizations, they say free credit counseling, and that's true. However, if you want to sign up for a program that helps you pay back your debt, there are always fees associated with that. So it's important to know that sort of sometimes you'll see, free. It's not, what's free is actually limited. At Credit Counseling, we have one of the programs that helps people pay back debt is a debt management program. That's our in-house program. That program has the lowest fees of any program in Niagara, and we also have a policy that we won't turn away anyone if they have a genuine inability to pay the fee. So that's an important thing to keep in mind if you have clients, individuals, who need that kind of help. Okay, so that's sort of the one-on-one. Those are the one-on-one resources. There are good print resources out there and video resources as well. And this Federal Consumer Agency of Canada is probably what I've found to be the best in terms of having some fairly basic topics. Things like, how do I open a bank account? Some fairly basic things that you might not find in other areas. The website there, you can access all of these resources from the website. And one of the nice things about it too is that all of the resources that they also offer in French. So if you're looking for French language resources or videos, this is a good place to go to. So I've just put up a few examples of some of the things that some of the topics that they cover, just to give you an idea: budgeting, banking, credit, fraud, and they have sort of life stage things too. What do you need to think about financially when you're starting your first job, or you lose your job, or that kind of thing. Because we were talking about banking, people without bank accounts as one of the issues, I also just pulled up, here are some of the tip sheets that they offer for specifically related to banking. Your rights with regards to opening a bank account. How do you find a lower cost bank account? That kind of thing. And this is not the FCAC, this is community care, but sometimes people will not have a bank account because they don't have any ID, and you need ID to open a bank account. So I just thought I'd also point out that community care does run ID clinics. I know they were going through the refunding process. I know they've got clinics listed until into June. I'm hoping that their funding got renewed and they'll continue after that, but you would check with the community care website to find out about that. They can help connect people with sometimes free and low-cost ID if they're having trouble, if that's sort of what's stopping them from getting what they need. Also at the FCAC on their website, they have videos if you have clients who prefer to do things that way. They recently launched a series of videos. They're about 10 minutes each. They cover the topics of budgeting, credit, debt, saving and investing, financial planning, and protecting yourself from fraud. The only thing about these, you might want to take a look at them before you recommend them to all your clients. They're aimed at fairly young people. There's a lot of texting in the 20-something age group characters. It wasn't quite aimed at my demographic, but that's something to take a look at. And those videos are available in French as well. And actually, I'll just mention, at Credit Counseling, we are currently trying to develop workshops in French. We haven't delivered any in French up until now, but I've been upgrading my French and we're working towards that. So if there are French organizations out there who would like to work with us on that and partner on that, I've talked with the Centre de Santé Communautaire a little bit. But if there are other people who are interested in that project, by all means, please get a hold of me as well. Okay, we're almost at the end. I just wanted to put in a plug for the BeFAIR Project because what they're doing is related to this topic. BeFAIR Project is a new project in Niagara. It's funded by the Department of Justice Canada and sponsored by Niagara North Community Legal Assistance. And basically they're working to stop elder financial abuse in the region. the stage of the project that they're in right now is information gathering. They're collecting stories of people who have been victims of elder financial abuse so that they can establish, give some backing to the idea that this is a serious problem and that we need to devote resources to helping these people. So if you are working with clients who fit into this category and they have stories to share, the contact information is there. I would encourage you to try and connect them with that project. Okay. I know I talked very fast and tried to cram a whole bunch in and still went over time. But hopefully this sort of started things going, gave you a little bit of an introduction. As I said, we are open to the possibility of maybe having another webinar or providing information in other ways on financial literacy topics. So I'm hoping you'll take a minute to click in this slide if you're interested in learning more about financial literacy topics. I've put some options here: budgeting, dealing with debt, credit and loans, and fraud. And of course, in the question period, I'd be happy to, if there are other topics that you want to talk about, by all means, we can do that as well. Now I think if I go to the next slide, just maybe, I'm not sure if you can keep adding stuff.
Kathleen, if you want to leave it open for a second, I can maybe ask
you. I'll leave it open then. If I flip, it will close the survey.
That's right. But I just wanted to share, Lori Peets shared in the chat pod, thanks for the ID Clinic plug. And yes, they've secured funding for the ID Clinic.
Good, excellent. Good. That's good to know.
And Mary had asked, where are the CCRN locations around Niagara, i.e. what are the locations where people seeking CCRN services can connect with CCRN? Okay,
you know what? I don't have my folder with me. Our main office is in St. Catharines. It's on Welland, near Tasker Street. And I will give you the address. It is 264 Welland Avenue. The other locations are throughout Niagara. We have one in Niagara Falls at 421 Stanley Avenue in the Project Share in Niagara Falls. We have one in Welland at 189 East Main Street. We have one in Grimsby in the Village Inn Center. I think it's in the employment services there. That's at 63 Main Street West. And we just opened one recently in Fort Erie at 255 Gilmore Road in the Salvation Army Church building there. If people are interested in appointments, everything is done through the main office on Welland Avenue in St. Catharines. And if you want, I can post this information. Probably the easiest way to do it is I will post information rather than you guys having to scribble it down.
Yeah, and I think Melissa's put the link up there.
Okay, good.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, so are we done with the poll?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, I think there's only one. The last thing is these are just some links to some of the resources that I mentioned. The CCRN website, right now our website is dreadful. But hopefully in maybe about a month we'll have a shiny new one. But you can get information at the website. It doesn't look very nice, but you can get information there. Also the Consumer Protection Ontario is if you want to report problems with a collection agency, and they have a variety of things actually at that website as well. Information for the Community Care ID clinics is there, and then that Federal Consumer Agency of Canada website has lots of good materials. We will be posting, I think, the curriculum for newcomers and for people with low literacy as PDFs when the webinar goes out in a week or so, I think. Is that right, Sarah?
That's right, yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so that's it for me.
Thank you, Kathleen. We do have a couple questions here, and then we'll flip it over to Carol to talk to us a little bit more today.
Sure.
So Beth asks, do you assist with completing applications for disability tax credit?
We don't do that as far as I know. I can double check, but I don't believe we do that.
And Kristen says, do you work with cancer patients to help find funding for drugs and financial resources?
Basically, what the counselors do is they help people who are having trouble with debt. So if people have debt and they're finding they're unable to pay it back, there are programs that will help people pay back debt. So basically, what they do is within that fairly defined sphere. And then my part is the education part. So no, that question about cancer patients is not something, that's not our area of expertise.
Right. Marissa asks, is Credit Counselling interested in finding a site to deliver services in Port Colborne?
Certainly that's something we can talk about. As I mentioned, we recently opened the Fort Erie location because of requests from the community. So that certainly we're always interested in hearing if the need exists and the demand exists. That's something that we'd be happy to talk about. So by all means, if she wants to get in touch with me about that, I'd be happy to talk about that.
Perfect. And we do have your contact information on our very last slide of the presentation today.
Yeah.
Just another couple questions here. Rick asked, do you know of anyone doing anything about payday loan industry?
About payday loans, sorry, what was the last word?
Industry.
In terms of fixing it, the government actually did make changes to legislation, I think a year or two ago. Unfortunately, it's still outrageous. They are sort of trying to keep an eye on it. They recently closed down the green one. Was it one of the one with the green sign? I think one of the businesses recently had to shut down because they were in violation of codes. But unfortunately, according to the law, what they're doing is legal. So other than sort of petitioning the government to make further changes and limits to that, I'm not sure that what else really is happening out there for that.
I'm going to hold. We do have a couple other questions and comments that have come in. Marianne suggested someone who does presentations on disability tax credit. So
that's good.
So we do have a couple other questions, but I'm going to hold them, and we're going to flip over to Carol, and then
Sure.
We'll come back and we'll have some opportunity for discussion at the end as well. So thank you very much, Kathleen, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again.
Good.
Carol, can I turn it over to you now? You may have
Sure.
to press.
Here
Perfect.
I am. I'm happy to be here. I'm sort of feeling like Kathleen probably could have used the whole hour given the questions and all the interest, which is great, because I think mine is going to be have less content, let's put it that way. I'm going to kind of review really what happened this year regarding low-income tax returns, and certainly low-income tax returns and getting that done is an important thing. You can see here on my first slide, to file or not to file. And I think overall that is the question that we all need to be asking ourselves in terms of the clients that we serve, in terms of the population around us, and how indeed do we get everyone to consider completing a tax return. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done this year. I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of people filing a tax return. I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts for the 2014 tax year, kind of where we go from here to improve on this year's attempts. And I recognize from the list of people participating that some of you have lots of experience in this and actually kind of helped out this year. So I'm hoping I don't miss anything when I go through this. So I'm going to talk about demand in terms of getting low-income folks to file their income tax returns, and what really was the demand in Niagara that sort of precipitated this movement to increase opportunities. And so in essence, through the Niagara Poverty Reduction Network and through a service providers meeting in Niagara Falls originally, we identified the fact that one agency was turning away hundreds of individuals who were looking to get their income tax filed for free, but there were not enough appointments or clinics for these individuals. So the Niagara Poverty Reduction Network sort of echoed that sentiment and experience, and indeed endorsed the notion that there were definitely not enough opportunities. And so we then started, kind of Rick Merritt's here, I think, on the line, and a couple of other folks. We started kind of looking around, saying, okay, so who is doing something, and why aren't we offering enough opportunities, and what can we do to make them more opportunities? So we look around, and sure enough, some libraries for many years have been hosting low-income tax clinics. Typically, MPs' offices have done the same thing. Some community organizations have offered the income tax clinics as well. So there's a variety of providers in the community that we certainly observed, but we knew too that we needed to do more. We also knew that we needed help from Canada Revenue Agency due to the fact that there were some changes in terms of how free low-income tax clinics were being offered across the country under the guidance of Canada Revenue Agency. So we definitely went to them to get some assistance to help us organize ourselves and understand the resources and the responsibilities in this regard. And we really also didn't understand or weren't clear necessarily on who the target audience was in Niagara in terms of these low-income tax clinics. And so here, actually, at the United Way, and I probably will reference our experience a few times. I hope that's okay with you guys. We looked at the CRA recommendations in terms of the basic standard for eligibility, and for your reference, this year that was a single person who was earning up to $30,000 a year was eligible. A couple who were earning up to $40,000 a year was eligible, and one adult with one child up to $35,000 a year. And then additional children add $5,000 per child, basically. And clearly, the target audience is for extremely simple tax returns. So, not doing tax returns for self-employed individuals, not doing tax returns for an individual who has filed bankruptcy, individuals who report employment expenses, business and rental income, for instance, are not eligible for this program. So you can see that it's a pretty specific target audience that we were looking at for this program. So we did a fair amount of fact-finding on what is a community volunteer income tax program, and you can see what the acronym stands for right there in the first bullet. And so then Mary sort of asked me, okay, so Mary Wiley, how do you do this? How does it work? What's it all about? So what it's all about is recruiting volunteers right off the bat. So to be really clear, it's not me preparing income tax here at the United Way office. It's not a Revenue Canada staff person preparing income tax returns. It's a team of volunteers. Each site is responsible for recruiting its own volunteers. Revenue Canada offers online training in convenient modules that people can access in their own time frame, which is, I thought, pretty cool. We downloaded free software that Revenue Canada provides, and that can be downloaded onto a desktop or a laptop, whatever meets the needs of the volunteers. And here in the office, we downloaded it onto a desktop that was the basically tax return computer. You apply for an e-file registration, which then allows you to, once the tax return has been prepared, e-file it to Revenue Canada. It's very easy and very quick, which most clients are very happy when that happens so quickly right in front of their eyes. We set some dates for the clinics. I think the best thing for us this year was that we worked with 211 for booking the appointments. So here at the United Way office, we're basically neophytes when it came to running an income tax clinic. And all I could think of was, how do we organize these appointments? But it was actually 211 that helped us with this. So it was very smooth. People would, once the word got out there that we were doing the clinics, people were calling the office. And so then it was great for us to be able to say, well, actually, all of the available appointments are through 211. Just call there and they will let you know what's available. And the other piece of that was great was 211 then did sort of the pre-screening. You know, what year are you filing your tax for? How many folks are in your family? Be sure to bring X, Y, Z when you come to the appointment. So that piece was taken away from us, which was extremely helpful. And I think the return on investment is sort of an interesting piece that I'm trying to wrap my head around. Like most of you out there, I'm responsible to a board where you talk about what's the best use of our resources within this organization. Are we doing what's best for the community? So I'm trying to kind of think about what is the return on investment in participating in a community volunteer income tax program. And the easiest way for me to do it is to talk about the fact that we'll file about 160, actually probably more returns. And from a quick review of one or two of the simplest returns, individuals are going to get at least $500 back a year through some benefits. And so 160 times 500 is $80,000. We're looking at about 60 volunteer hours, a little bit of time through 211, and a little bit of commitment here in the office. So for us, that is a huge return on investment, and that money is being spent right in the community, which I think is an important note to make. And I will add here that because of demand, we have opened up some June dates. So if any of you know of any individuals who still need their 2012 or 13 taxes filed, we have opened up dates on June 5th, 9th, 11th, 12th, and 16th. And so folks just need to call 211 to get in on those opportunities. I think most of you know what's at stake. The Ontario Trillium benefit, the HST GST rebate, the Ontario Senior Homeowners Property Tax Grant, the Child Tax Benefit. And then I think it's important when you're talking to people about the importance of filing that the opportunity to qualify for other things like housing assistance, like bursaries for children who are planning to attend post-secondary. Many times people say, okay, well, to qualify, we would really like to see your most recent income tax return, please. And so I think it's important that that piece is added. The cash in people's pockets is really important, but this is another important aspect of what is at stake and why we would encourage people to complete their income tax returns. So one thing that we have really experienced here in the office is a chance to talk to people when they do get here, or a chance to kind of chat with them on the phone a little bit about the barriers to filing income tax. And I don't think any of these will be surprising, but it means that we need to pay attention and that we probably need to do something to help people overcome these barriers. And some of this relates to what Kathleen talked about earlier a little bit. And so this is the slide, the point at which I'm going to say that I'm hoping you can help with the initiative to try to overcome the barriers and encourage people to file. So the fear intimidation piece was very apparent to me. Taxes appear to be a complex, convoluted activity. People are scared by that. As Kathleen said, if you have some literacy issues to begin with, trying to face a tax return is extremely difficult. I had an interesting experience in the office where someone brought her parents to have their taxes done, but she wasn't. She said, I think I'm going to get into trouble. They're going to find out more about me than I want them to find out, whoever they are. She really, talked about it being intrusive. And so I tried to understand where that came from. I didn't really get a sense of it, but it's out there, this kind of fear, intimidation, and I think a lot of that comes from lack of understanding. And so we have to really do a good job of helping people understand that this isn't as complicated as people think it is, and it's certainly a private opportunity for people, and nothing intrusive is going to come into their lives and disrupt what I guess they sense as private information. The lack of understanding piece too, it was very strong, because for some reason people perceive that if they're not working, they don't need to file. And so this is a piece that I think we have to just keep talking about and talking about and talking about. I think people don't realize what is at stake. I was shocked to have a conversation with someone who, hasn't worked for a couple of years. He and his girlfriend, they have children. They haven't filed for 3 years, haven't been able to receive the benefits that they're eligible for, and yet, just didn't seem to understand that this opportunity is out there. So we really need to work on that. The incomplete information piece, I sense that some people think that it's a daunting thing to pull their information together. Most of the people who are filing through this program have extremely simple returns. You're looking at maybe 1 or 2 pieces of paper that would show income, and perhaps 1 or 2 pieces of paper that show deductions, perhaps, so or tax credits. So it's really, if they think they don't have the information they need, we need to assure them that they probably do, that it's a couple of pieces of paper, and that's about it. Transportation, we're on a bus route, but we certainly had some issues with transportation and access together. So folks who just couldn't even access a bus to get here, and we're probably going to have to think about how we overcome these kinds of issues, and I'm going to talk about that on the final slide. Language is an issue, and Kathleen talked about that a little bit too. It's great to have resources in English and French from the federal government, but if neither of those are your first language, now we've got a situation. And so trying to tackle what appears to be complex financial language in a tax return that is in either English or French is just very difficult for people to even consider doing. And the last bullet, I'm surprised at the number of people who have never filed, and perhaps I shouldn't be surprised now that we've been through this, but I do sense that people who have compiled, a decade of unfiled returns, perhaps are living slightly chaotic lives because of their difficult situations. It's overwhelming to know that you have many, many years of unfiled returns. We have to find a way to solve that and to make a start on filing those returns and getting those people current so that they can receive their benefits. So here are some of my thoughts in terms of where we're heading. So for the 14 tax year, we need more people ready to file. And so from my perspective, that's you guys talking to your clients now right through to next February to say, okay, don't forget that you should be filing, and these are the things that you need to consider. It's easy. Think of the benefits. So we need more people who are ready to file, and which means that we need to work on those barriers that I talked about too. We need more CVITP opportunities. We need to encourage more hosts, more trained volunteers. And I, for one, I'm hoping to kind of work with those people who have shown an interest in this to kind of spread the word and get more chances across the region. I'd really like to do something about training volunteers to do the back years of filing. We've had one in our office who has this kind of expertise, and so we need to kind of think about how we do that, how we recruit those folks, and what kind of training we need to give them with the assistance of Canada Revenue Agency. For the 2013 tax year, we talked about class computer lab settings, and this, I think, kind of attaches on to what Kathleen was talking about, where we want individuals to learn how to do some of these things themselves. So I'm wondering whether a class computer lab setting where individuals would come, the software would be on the computers, but there perhaps would be one person in that lab to assist them if they had a question or stumbled. So provide them with a little bit of supervision, but then in the end you're sort of teaching them to be more financially literate and to be more confident about filing their own taxes moving forward, which leads me to the next bullet. There is a list of free tax preparation software on the Canada Revenue Agency site. So people can actually use that software. It's free. The software availability is based on a client's tax situation. But I guess my hope is that we could have people in a class computer lab setting one year, and then the next year we can provide them with a link to the software right on the CRA website, and they're off and running themselves. And I guess, how can you help? I put this at the very end when I should have put it at the very beginning. But I did want to kind of end by saying, gosh, I think it's really important that we collectively let clients know that they should be filing, that it is part of developing an individual's financial literacy, and they're just missing out on some basic benefits that would make life better for those folks. And I think that's something that we all want and desire. And that's it for me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carol. We do have a few questions here, and Melissa, we do have our contact slide there up. So if you have additional questions or you think about something later that you want to reach out to our presenters, please do so. And in a couple minutes, Melissa will be putting up some evaluation questions that we encourage you as participants to answer to help us better tailor our webinars going forward. But in the meantime, while that's happening, we do have a couple questions here. Mary asks, can we share the information about the June income tax filing assistant dates on the Niagara Connects calendar on the NKE? And certainly we can. Carol, you'd mentioned what those additional dates were. Can you give us those dates again, and we'll just put them up here for people as well?
June 5, 9, 11, 12, 16.
5, 9, 11, 12, and 16. Perfect. We'll get that
here
up
at the McBain Community Center.
That was going to be my next question.
Thank
you very much. And then we had some additional questions going back, Kathleen, to you as well. Nancy had asked, can you recommend any apps for tablets that would help people with low literacy levels learn about budgeting?
I can't recommend anything off the top of my head. I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I don't have a tablet myself, but I will happily do some research on that and get back to you with some suggestions.
Perfect. And maybe we keep talking about our communication coming out in about a week, and we keep adding to that, but it's going to be a really beefy communication. Great. So that will have the link to the recording and slides, the resources that you've talked about, Kathleen and Carol, today, And then as well, if we have anything else like that, like some apps or that kind of thing, we can put those links in there as well. Lori asks, would we as an agency be able to vouch for a client's low income status in order to have the fee waived for credit counseling?
And I'm going to have to actually talk to my boss about that as well. So I will ask about that and get back to you on that one.
Great, thank you. Dan asks, are you mandated to open as a competitor to the Payday companies?
Yeah, we don't give loans. Basically what we do is if people come to us and they're having trouble with debt, we can arrange programs that help them pay that back. And if you want, if it's useful to people, I can do up a little write-up that explains the programs. We won't have time really now to go through it, but I can do a write-up and attach that in the resources as well. Let me know if you would like that. So we don't actually give people money. So we're not really in the same sort of business as the payday loan guys at all.
Marianne asks, does credit counseling help individuals file bankruptcy, and what are the fees associated with that? We do help. Basically, we offer 3 programs. And as I said, it's probably easier for me to give you more detail in a write-up, but I'll go through them very quickly now. A debt management program we run in-house. That's the one where we control the fees, so we could waive fees on that. The other 2 programs are consumer proposal and bankruptcy, and we can facilitate those, but those are both legal proceedings and involve trustees. So we don't control the fees associated with that. Typically, a bankruptcy will depend, the fees you pay depends on your income. They tend to start around $1,600. Now, of course, people who are filing for bankruptcy usually don't have a lot of money, so they split that up into usually 8 monthly payments. You're paying $200 a month, but again, it might vary. It can vary depending on a person's income. Theoretically, there is a list of trustees, because it's the trustees that are charging those fees, who have agreed to charge reduced or no fees for bankruptcy. But our experience as an organization has been that it's very, very, very difficult to access that, that really there are very few or almost no people in the region who are willing to do that. Thank you. Lewis suggests that maybe the CCRN could partner up with local French clubs and Desjardins Caisse Populaire for workshops in French.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you.
And then finally, Kelly says, what about free clinic availability all year long? Do they still call 211 to find a clinic?
Actually, clinics are usually, all the clinics are posted on the Canada Revenue Agency website under CVITP program. No. I mean, they could call 211 to see what 211 knows about free clinics all year round. Unfortunately, some of the clinics all year round are just aren't linked necessarily to 211. So from my perspective, you would call 211 first and see what you could find out about year-round clinics. In fact, I think Information Niagara was even talking about doing it themselves also. But I think there's a limited number of year-round clinics, which is something we probably need to think about as well. Particularly for these people who haven't filed for years. We could work on that throughout the year, basically. But that's a good question. But the Revenue Canada website is the best place to go for the listings.
Do we have any other questions or comments? You can either type them in the chat pod, or if you want to say anything verbally, you can do so by pressing *7 and unmuting your own phone line. Then as we're just wrapping up the evaluation questions here, I wanted to thank both of our presenters today, Carol and Kathleen. That was a fantastic presentation. This is certainly not my area of work or expertise, but I learned a lot today from this, and I'm sure other participants today did as well. Our next webinar, for those interested, is on July 9th, and the topic will be reputation management with Brady Wood. If you are interested in that or interested in staying connected to the things that we're offering at Niagara Connects, please visit our website, www.niagaraknowledgeexchange.com. And at the very bottom, there's a form in our footer there to fill out, and that puts you on our distribution list, on our mailing list. So that'll make sure that you're getting invitations for upcoming webinars, such as this one, as well as our bi-monthly e-newsletter that links you to the latest content on our site that's been happening there. As I said, we will certainly send out a follow-up within about a week to resources and the recording and all those things we've talked about today, and I encourage you to forward it on to other colleagues who may be interested and just not able to join us today. But other than that, I think that's all. Thank you very much to those who took the time to join us today, and again to our presenters. It was a fantastic presentation. Please don't close your web screen for about another minute because we do have one more question after this. But other than that, that's all for today. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.